Hey there, soccer freaks. This is ATL On Fire, the podcast where we talk all things Atlanta United Football Club. So sit back, buckle up, enjoy.
People are angry enough.
All right, so let's bring it back to our listeners here. We've had 4 Atlanta United games since our last podcast. We've got the Orlando MLS opener down in Orlando. We had the Fire game, which is the home opener for Atlanta United at the Benz. Philly in the quarterfinals of the CCL tournament, the first leg. And then the other night, on Saturday night, we had the New England match, which was just last night. Yeah. And yeah, why don't we move through it pretty quickly in terms of at least the Orlando game, because not a lot of things to talk about other than my opinion of that game was Orlando's a solid team, good players. Atlanta at least came out, held their own under a new coach, a new style to play. And I think you started to see it in that game more than you had in the previous Costa Rican side games, where there was some structure. They played strong, they played organized, and not a lot to be overly disappointed with. Not the most exciting match in the world, but that was my overall take.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Orlando has come a long way from when Atlanta United just beat them every single time. They're actually got a good coach, and coaching matters. I mean, it's amazing. You get a good coach, and within one season, they went from never qualifying for the playoffs to actually, more or less a contender. And MLS is like that. There's enough parity that if you get a good coach, that's enough, right? A couple of players, a good coach, and bam,
Last night, Bruce Arena. I mean, a
yeah, I
team
mean,
that
Bruce
we
Arena,
beat
like,
7-0 when they had a crappy coach.
yeah, that New England team was just the pits, and then Bruce Arena shows up, and within a month has them in the playoffs, right? That when he first joined, and now, just shows you it's astonishing how a good coach can do it. But anyway, in the Orlando match, I think people were disappointed. Some, the chatter was that, look, 0-0 draw, but I thought Atlanta United under Heinze has looked tactically just miles superior to what we saw under certainly under Stephen Glass, but even under De Boer. I think much more of an aggressive team, particularly out of the back. Matching up, getting up the field. And I think you saw that even signs of it in that game, even though we didn't really get too many chances. We were in their third, the attacking third a lot. We had a lot of possession, and we were in their attacking third on the road against a good Orlando team. I would have said, obviously hindsight, because I know what happened in the next couple of games, but I would have said, really showing signs of a vast improvement in the side.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely would say our defense as good as it should be right now, particularly with the most recent joining of Alan Franco. There was a lot of these games where the opposing team hit the woodwork, including that Orlando game, if I recall, where we definitely have gotten lucky in some of those games too. I felt like Orlando definitely probably had the higher quality chances in that game, if I recall. I felt like they could have had the advantage there on winning the game, given the opportunities on goal that they had versus us, even though neither side had a ton of opportunities. Seemed pretty even there, but the ones that Orlando had were probably a little bit more higher chance on, what do they call that rating?
I think, I think if you go back to, for example, year 2 under the Tata regime, there's always rose-colored glasses that people use to look back, right? And obviously, it turned out to be a title-winning side. Early on in that season, we were dominating matches, but it was a very aggressive defensive posture. We got up the field, and and that allowed us in the back, to basically boss games, to keep the opposing sides in their own half, to win the ball, to get some pressure, right? But people forget there were a couple of games where we had these just epic fails in the back, where all of a sudden everybody was up, and they got breakaways, and then people were like LGP misread it or whatever. But it was a very aggressive posturing side, and it reminded me a little bit of that look, in the early days, the growing pains, when you're being that aggressive defensively, you're gonna have moments where you look back and you're like, whoa, wait a second, somebody just ran right by and got a breakaway. But you take that in exchange as a team for dominating the ball, dominating possession, and in an attacking way, not in a DeBoer, we're going to pass the ball 152 times around the back so we get possession technically. But this is not that kind of possession. This is quality possession in the opponent's half, going after people, winning the ball again quickly when you lose it. That kind of sign was really, that was really impressive. And I think it harkens back to the early days of Tata's regime, where it didn't always work. There were moments where we got beat and you were like, oh,
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the game where it did work, which is the next game against the Chicago Fire, right? We ended up winning 3-1.
I actually just think one more example in that Tata title winning side season, right? When we were going for the Supporters Shield, right? And we went against, it was Toronto in the final regular season game to try to win the Supporters Shield.
Yeah.
And we got annihilated in that game. We lost like 3
I remember that.
Right? And that was a perfect example of what I'm talking about, where in exchange to have an aggressive makeup and to dominate, you sometimes can give up, and that team, of course, instantly turned it around fundamentally in the playoffs and rolled through the playoffs and won the whole title. So it reminds me of that.